হ্যালো ডাটা স্পটওয়ার্ড এবং যারা অনেক দূর থেকে আমাদেরকে অনলাইনে দেখছেন সবাইকে আমাদের আজকের সেমিনারে স্বাগতম। বেস্ট ডিএফডব্লিউটিএক্স এই দেশ থেকে আপনারা আমাদেরকে লাইভে দেখছেন। আমাদের সাথে এই মুহূর্তে থাকার জন্য আপনাদেরকে রইল কৃতজ্ঞতা। আজ আমরা একটা ইন পার্সন এবং লাইভ এই হাইব্রিড একটা সেমিনার করছি এবং এই সেমিনারটি আমাদের উদ্দেশ্য একটু ভিন্ন বলতে আমরা বিভিন্ন সময় আসি বেস্ট ডিএফডব্লিউটিএক্স পেজ থেকে বিভিন্ন বিষয় নিয়ে আমরা বেস্ট আপ করি। আজকেরটা কিন্তু বেস্ট আপ নয়, আজকেরটা একটা লাইভ সেমিনার। আমরা সবাই জানি টেক্সাসে প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স বেশ অনেক বেশি। প্রত্যেক বছর আমাদের বাড়ির দাম বাড়ে এবং আমাদেরকে প্রোটেস্ট করতে হয়। কেউ কেউ করি আমরা, কেউ কেউ করি না। কিন্তু এই যে প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স, এটার প্রোটেস্টের প্রস এন্ড কনস এবং প্রোটেস্ট করলে আমরা কি জিততে পারি, অথবা এটা প্রোটেস্ট করার আসলে কি কোনো প্রয়োজনীয়তা আছে, এসব বিষয়ে আমরা আজ কথা বলবো এবং আমরা চাইব আপনারা আপনাদের কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকলে অনলাইনে কমেন্ট সেকশনে লিখবেন। আমরা সেই প্রশ্ন দেখে আজ যারা কথা বলবে তাদের কাছ থেকে উত্তরটা পৌঁছে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করব। আজ আমাদের এই সেমিনারে দুজন থাকছেন কথা বলতে। প্রথমে ইন্ট্রোডাকশন দিবেন মিজান রশিদ। উনি ডাটা স্পটওয়ার্কের একজন ডিরেক্টর এবং উনি এই কনসার্নটিকে নিয়ে কথা বলবেন আরেকজন স্পিকারের সাথে। তিনি একজন লয়ার এবং তিনি এসেছেন রেটেক্স গ্রুপ থেকে। আমি নামটি বলে দিচ্ছি এবং এইটুকু জানিয়ে রাখি যে আমাদের এই ট্যাক্সের বিষয়ে, প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের বিষয়ে, ফরেস্টের বিষয়ে ওনারা কাজ করেন এবং উনি রেসিডেন্সিয়াল এবং কমার্শিয়াল দুই ধরনের প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্সের ফরেস্টের উপরে কাজ করেন। স্পিকার থাকছেন আজকে মনিকা আরবান বেনিক। উনি ডিরেক্টর রেসিডেন্সিয়াল ফোকাসড দ্য রে ট্যাক্স গ্রুপ থেকে নিয়ে এসেছেন। তো আমি প্রথমেই ডেকে নেব মিজান রশিদকে ইন্ট্রোডাকশন দেওয়ার জন্য।
Thank you so much. আমাদের একেবারে নিজেদের প্রোগ্রাম সেই হিসেবে হয়তো হাততালি না হলেও হবে। But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kiapa, for the introduction, and thank you so much, Best, for giving us this platform. For my introduction, আমার নাম মিজান রশিদ, of course Bangladeshi, Dallas Fort Worth, USA, for that matter. I'm pretty new. I'm just about 3 years old. I have had a long executive career elsewhere, Bangladesh এবং অন্যান্য দেশে। তো ওগুলো ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড থেকে এখানে যখন এসেছি তখন I thought that this is one profession I'm gonna love. Why? Because this by doing a realtor business, I can help a lot of people make probably the biggest property or biggest decision, apart from love life, or bigger decision. Like apart from that material decision, I can be a part of that. I can make a positive contribution and thereby help those. And so my entire motto of this realtor business is actually, why are you making money? Of course, that's there, like any other business, but also is how I can be of real good use to my fellow customers and clients. And if যেহেতু ওইটাই উদ্দেশ্য, তখন এই যখন প্রপার্টির, আমার নিজেরও প্রপার্টি আছে, যখন প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স প্রতি বছর বাড়ে, এবং বাড়ে কি সাঁই করে বাড়ে 15%, investment property it goes up 15-20%. One of my investment property in 1 year, first year, it went up by 50%, 50%. That's mind blowing. Now, that's how the taxes go up, and even on নিজের থাকার বাড়ি থেকেও ছাঁচড়াই করে যাচ্ছে তো সেখানে can we do something, can I do something as a realtor to bring about this knowledge that probably will, enable আমাদের কাস্টমার কিংবা আমাদের যে বাংলাদেশি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডের মানুষ আছে তাদেরকে to deal with this problem better. Just to give you perspective, Texas follows 7th most expensive property tax state in the entire country, US. And despite after having this homestead reduction, homestead allowance at $40,000 ছিল যেটা এখন 100,000 against it. Even after that, this is 7th most expensive property tax state. What does it mean? It means for majority of the household, একটা বছর একটা হাউসহোল্ড যা খরচ করে, সেটা গ্রোসারি থেকে গার্ডেন মোয়িং, লন্ড্রি, everything put together, all the expenses put together, তার একটা বড় অংশ calculated roughly about 10% is paid for property tax. It's a mind-blowing number, right? Now, I was telling my wife and also to Ryan just a few minutes back that when it comes to reducing cost আমাদের লাইফে, we go to shop different garden lawnmowers so that $35 না হয়ে গেলে $30 করা যায়. Then I save $20 a month. Yeah, 4 বার আসলে একটা বিভিন্ন ওয়েবসাইটে যাই, গিয়ে দেখি যে আমার the musical instrument that I want to buy, can I buy some $20, $30 less? I go to 10 different websites. But when it comes to 10% of my total expenses, a lot of us, আমাদের মধ্যে অনেকেই, we take it for granted. $15,000 tax, government tax, property tax, we take it for granted. It has gone up by another 1,500, 10%. And we say that, what to do? Okay, let us pay another 1,500. So, why the mindset is like that? Most likely, আমার মনে হয় নতুন মানুষ হিসেবে, নতুন রিয়েলিটি হিসেবে, নতুন কি বলে প্রতিবেশী হিসেবে, যে আমাদের lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, and that's where today's seminar will come in. We don't, simply because it's a government tax, local government tax, we don't have to take it at face value. We must contest, of course, to its merit, and find ways of reducing it to the extent that's possible. And for that, we will do whatever in terms of knowledge dissemination, but also we can resort to the experts like the Ray Group. We can resort to the experts like the other law firms who solely deal on how to reduce this huge cost burden which is imposed onto us on a every year basis. Awareness এর যে অভাব, আজকে একজনের সাথে কথা বলছিলাম, আমার কারেন্ট ক্লায়েন্ট, ওকে জিজ্ঞেস করলাম যে তো এই why did you come to join this year seminar? বলল যে কেন, কিসের প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স রিলেশন, প্রপার্টি ট্যাক্স কি জিনিস, প্রতি বছর দাও ইয়ের সাথে মর্টগেজের সাথে এটা চলে যায়, বাজিয়েছে জানি না, বাট এটা তো প্রতি বছর 10% করে বাড়ে, ইউ নো দ্যাট, না? নেভার, আমি আমার হাজবেন্ড জীবন দেখে গেছি, শুনি নেই। কত টাকা ট্যাক্স দাও? about 12,000 টাকা। 12,000 টাকা this year also you're gonna have $1,200 tax raise in your homestead. নিজের বাড়িতে, আর যদি এটা যদি ইনভেস্টমেন্ট পাওয়ার, এটা gone up even higher. And that awareness that it can be done itself is not there. So with these, and there are many ways of reducing tax, but that requires the right kind of data, right kind of knowledge, and right kind of also the kind of the persistence that a particular business whose days in and days out goes into doing that probably can begin that. With that, I will invite onto stage Ryan Ray. He's the president of Ray Consulting Group, not Consulting Group, Property Tax Group. Ray, over to you. So could you please take us through the process itself? What are the different ways that we can actually impact the property taxes? And we could open for question and answer at a later stage. Please, over to Ryan Ray.
Sorry. Well, thank you, Mazan and Bess, for having me on today. So my name is Ryan Ray. I'm an attorney and a senior property tax consultant. Got out of law school in 2009 and I guess 2008, and started my practice and got into the field of property tax, which is somewhat obscure in the legal community. There are a handful of attorneys in this field, but this is, I don't give a lot of presentations in this business. I send out a lot of mail. I run a lot of digital marketing, and I don't do a lot of one-on-one presentations. So I don't really have an agenda, but I'll tell you a little bit just about me and my company. So been doing this business for about there's as long as anybody at this point, and we've built up to one of the largest firms in Texas. Do significant amount of accounts, several thousand accounts in Dallas and Collin, and then Tarrant and Denton, and all over the state of Texas. But one of the things that, well, I guess I'll just, if you protested before, or whether you haven't, there are kind of three different ways that we approach things when we go in. The legislature set up two different methodologies for appeal. One is the market or sales side, that compared to the other sales in the area, that your property is overappraised. The other is equal and uniform. So the Texas Constitution says that your property shall be taxed equally and uniformly. So that is, just looking at your neighbors and doing the appropriate adjustment to find if there are scenarios where I just had a home in South Lake. I paid $2.5 million. It was valued at 2.3. We filed a lawsuit, which we don't file a lot of lawsuits relative, but I filed plenty of them, and got it down to $1,680,000 based off of equal and uniform. Because even though the sales, it was clearly worth 2.3, but equal and uniform is a different assessment methodology. And so, for each account, we look at both of those. The additional piece of that is, I say there's three different ways to look at it, but is the condition of your home, right? Your property. So if you've got a home that's more dated than the sales in the neighborhood, what you often see when neighborhoods that are 10, 20 years old or older, is you've got a lot of the sales in the area that are in much better condition than maybe the homes that people are currently living in, than maybe your home. So photos, estimates, things like that can be used both to impact the market and the equal and uniform side of the assessment. So there's really, it's two different value approaches, and then you've got the actual condition of the property is kind of a third element to that. One of the things that I say is, I don't know, we're in North Dallas and people could live in, theoretically Denton or Collin or Dallas, but if you went to each one of those appraisal districts and you took 10 sales, they would each adjust them and look at them completely differently. They have their own appraisal methodologies, and Dallas has one of the stranger ones that I've ever seen. quite honestly. But, you know, one of the things that sets us apart and makes it, is that, you know, going and it takes a lot of work to figure out the way the appraisal district is adjusting. And one of the things that's always bothered me, but it's also useful, is that 90% of the appraisers that you're dealing with don't understand the formulas and the adjustments and the appraisal methodology that they're actually using. They just put it in and they get a magic number, and that's what matters to them. So if you go and you take a sale from your neighbor and say you're at 170th foot and they're at 150th foot, you think this is a great sale, and they put it in and they, you know, come up with their magic number and it says, oh, after adjustments, this indicates 180th foot, and which is a very likely scenario after working all the adjustments, but they don't even know what those adjustments are. You know, somebody might be a developer back in the, you know, in a closet somewhere who actually knows, but you know, so what we've had to do is go and spend extensive amount of time to, you know, filing multiple open records requests and data sets and to kind of to back in and figure out how each appraisal district does those methodologies, so that when we take, you know, 3 or 5 or 6 sales to the appraisal district, we know that those are the sales that are going to show the absolute lowest possible value for your account, right? Or whether it's on the market or the unequal, so that we can come using their own evidence against them. And so I think that's one of the things that helps give us an edge against, you know, a homeowner who goes in. I mean, quite frankly, honestly, if your issue is just, hey, you know, my foundation is falling apart and I got a $50,000 estimate, then, you know, if you walk in there with the estimate, you might do just as well as I do, right? If it's just based off of that. But most of the time, it's about, you know, finding the absolute best evidence to support the lowest value possible. And the process is, you know, it's so, or some of you may know at least, is we actually have Texas, we do have some of the highest property taxes in the country. We also have one of the most, it doesn't always seem that way, but one of the most taxpayer-friendly appeals processes in the country. There are a lot of states where you have to go and file a claim with the small claims court and those kind of things, and go stand in front of a judge. You know, we have a 3-member panel of usually retired people, but a quasi-judicial panel that will hear, you know, claims before the appraisal review board. So, you know, if you sign up with us, you know, I've got a link here, it takes about 2 minutes, and then we'll take care of it from there and you're done, right? You know, but the process generally is, you know, you file the protest, you go before that 3-member appeals panel, you may have a discussion formally with the appraiser. You know, a lot of times again, they're looking at their sales. They're not just coming up with a number. Like, you know, they're gonna go and plug in those sales, but they're not necessarily gonna pick the sales that are most favorable to you. You know, they're gonna pick the sales that they want to pick to plug into the grid and then show you. So, and like I said, you can take sales and you can get somebody to, you know, pull some sales data for you, but you don't know once they plug it in that system what it's gonna do, right? So, you know, then you go before this 3-member panel and, you know, hopefully they stay awake. And if you're in Dallas, then they're just going to listen, and then they're going to do whatever the appraisal district says they're supposed to do and ignore you completely. And that's the way the Dallas appraisal district works. But you know, then you have beyond that the opportunity to file arbitration or a lawsuit, which, as I said, I mean, I don't do that in the majority of cases, but we file, you know, probably close to 1,000 arbitrations and lawsuits every year to get, you know, the maximum reduction possible for our clients. You know, we'll review it, you know, initially, And then after each account's done, we're gonna review it again to see what the result was, and if we can, squeeze out some more additional savings for the client, additional reductions by going that step further. So like I said, I know this wasn't the best presentation. I'm not great at this, but I ran for state rep in 2018, and I'm not a very good public speaker. It's not. I realized I'm not destined to be a politician. But if you got any questions, certainly be happy to answer them.
Sure. How do you charge your client?
The old standard, when I started, it was O'Connor and Associates down in Houston, they're biggest in the country. They were charging 50%, and and then a lot of us firms that were newer, we got a little bit competitive, started charging 40%. Now these days, competition more and more. So I've dropped my fees down to 30%, which are lower than pretty much everybody. But we've got,
Is that?
The wording, it wasn't your name, I know your name. But, no, it's just, actually, but we've got a promotion if, use the code Mizan when you sign up, and they do 20% for 2024, and then it was 30%.
So let me clarify that one. 20% and the based on what?
Of the actual tax savings. So let's say your house is at 500,000, and we go and we fight that, and we get it down to 450, a $50,000 taxable value reduction. And that's assuming that's all taxable value. I mean, I prefer it is, but if you have a homestead cap and maybe that's at 470, then at 50,000 may only be 20,000 taxable value. But whatever the taxable value reduction is, we'll take that and we'll apply it times the tax rate, which will just say 2% for basic math. So if we save 50,000, we've saved you $1,000 on your tax bill, and we will bill you at this point 20% of that. So you get a $200 bill, you get to keep $800 in your pocket. And if it's 20,000, 400, and we're only billing you $80, which is not ideal, but that's math.
Mohammed, if I may just add to what Ram said. First of all, it's a brilliant question. I think it's there in most of the audience's mind that what is going to cost. So before I answer that, let me just take a step back. In terms of process, you can do that. The protest or contest, you can do it yourself. So you go to a website, you go to Telangana website, you find out your property, you just say, I don't like this, protest. The moment you protest, the machine is going to offer you immediately. So my property was assessed at, for example, 730,000. Now, the moment I press protest, immediately it returns back that, okay, now your market value of your property we have reduced to 705,000, 25,000 reduction. Now, as a customer, you will feel actually happy. Oh, with a click, I have already saved 25,000 equivalent taxes. Now, you have not done anything. I have not saved a single penny. Why? These are the tricks that, I won't say tricks, these are the kind of knowledge that we need to have for us to make real savings. So what's happening is, what they give immediately is the market value reduction. And market value reduction does not necessarily mean tax reduction per se. In order for you to reduce your tax, the real tax, your assessed value or the appraised value has to go down. So these are the terminologies. So appraised value or the assessed value is a subset of your market value. All right. So what effectively you and I have to do or be able to do is bring down that appraised or the assessed value really down from whatever has been assessed already by the district, and only then we can make real savings. Yeah. So in the same example, the 730 market value initial market value by the district, which has now gone down to 705. The assessed value perhaps is at 655,000, the appraised value. Now, in order for me to get any savings, tax savings, that 655,000 needs to go down to below 655,000, and only then a part of that is going to be the rate tax group's remuneration. 20% of that is going to be what they will get. And just to clarify, their regular rate is 30%, right?
Yes.
So when I approach them, they say that, okay, so you're organizing, you get a referral fee of 10%. So 30%, 10%. So I kind of put my hands up that, no, I don't need that referral fee. Let it be for the customer. Because my objective is not to make business out of it. I've got other business to get paid from. So I'm not making any money. So just to clarify, it might be the, how much is me? I'm not making anything out of it. So 20% is something they will get, and they will get only when they have paid you 80% of the tax savings.
Well, we don't pay it to you, but made you. Made you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So let's say we protest. So after the protest, how does it work? The process. I'm asking, like, how does it work, or what's going to happen?
You mean if you hire us?
Right,
Or- okay.
right, sorry.
Well, I mean, no problem. I mean, we've got the sign up online, takes about 2 to 5 minutes. The user interface isn't as good as I like on mobile, but whatever. You'll receive an email from us, and we've got your paperwork, we're good to go. You'll receive an email when we file the protest, so we'll take care of filing the protest. Then usually starting in June, we'll start sending out what we've finalized. This is a very condensed time frame, because it's been kind of set by the legislature so that, they generally need to be done with everything by middle of July, so that those numbers can then get certified and sent to the taxing entities so that they can go and set their tax rates. But sometimes it does drag on, depending on the appraisal district, really. Denton, in the last couple of years, has been dragging it on into December in some cases. But June, July, normally, sometimes August, we'll send you and let you know what the result is of the hearing. We'll also, ask you, your opinion of it, which, and we'll start the process of reviewing at that point. And, if we have achieved any savings, then we'll send you a bill at that time. And we'll start the process of reviewing all those accounts for our, possible arbitration or to file a lawsuit, if there's, enough savings there to justify those, that. And then the tax rates are usually set in September. The bills go out in October, and then this is what, so the process, so then that's due, you pay that between October and January. Or if it's, if you have it escrowed in, then that's something that'll be, I've got a $500 reduction in my escrow because, cutting my property taxes. And so, anyway.
So if you go with him, the typical process is you protest, then they will give you an offer. If you don't accept the offer, then there is a hearing. On the day of hearing, you get an informal out-of-court settlement, kinda. So you can talk to a person and agree to a market value, assessed value. If you don't agree to that, you go to the hearing panel. There you put all the proofs, and whatever comes out as an assessed value is the value your taxes. So that's something if you want to do it all by yourself. And if you go with any firm and like Ray Tax Group, you delegate them, and that's it. The rest of the process is taken care of by them. Whether that brings in a result or not is something will be entirely up to them. So from then onward, there is hardly anything that you can do for them.
I have a question. Actually, it's a question from community, general question I know, but like we sometimes protest it personally. You are a tax group. I know that we can come to you and you can protest for us on behalf of us. So what is the difference or what extra I am getting? And is there any time gap while I am protesting it or you are protesting on behalf of me?
Okay, well, I mean, and if I misunderstood your question, but yeah, we're protesting, for you. There's two forms that you sign. You'll sign the agreement, and then the appointment of agent form, which gives the authority to act on your behalf on property tax matters with the appraisal district. And those are e-signed in the process. And so then we'll file the protest and do all that. You don't have to come to hearings, and it obviously, or sometimes we have clients that want to come to hearings, and it's not always, we'll have a number of hearings in a day and you don't know when something is, and so it's not really the ideal scenario generally. But the value add, I think, is well, three things. Well, two or three things. One is, the fact that this is what we do every day. I mean, what was it? I think Lincoln said, man who represents himself as a fool for a lawyer. That doesn't mean that you can't do well on your own, but this is what we do for a living. And the people that work for me that do this, this is what they do, right? We've got property tax consultants licensed by the state, some real estate agents, real estate brokers. I've got about 50 people that work for me in the property tax business. Usually I do these. I've got Monica would be here in this, but she's sick and sick little babies. And babies that she had outside of the property tax season. I was very clear with her. Like, you can have children, not until fourth quarter. Anyway, so
Saturday.
Yeah. I think it's the expertise, and it's really knowing, you've got to know the individual appraisers, and the appraisal review board members, and you got to know whether, you want to deal with this person or this person, or, that kind of thing, and then what to say to this person or this person that might get you to the point that you're going to do. And you get that experience with thousands of hearings and negotiations and things like that. But, perhaps even more than that is what I talked about before, is just knowing the way the appraisal district operates and the way that they're adjusting things, because it's a big difference. I see a lot of people, they will go and get some sales. A lot of people will go in and they'll be in a market value hearing, and they want to present equal and uniform evidence, right? And sometimes you may have only protested. Now they've kind of changed it. People would protest equal and uniform, and then they would go in and argue market value. And then the appraisal review board would just be like, oh, sorry, honey, you did the wrong thing, you're done. Or vice versa, right? You go and you bring sales, but you protested that it's not equal and uniformly appraised. So, first, we protest everything, and we prepare, find the best evidence for both arguments. And we make both arguments in every scenario, practically every scenario. And then it's finding those absolute best comps using the appraisal district's own methodologies, so that, and I think that's the big value add. And I think, in a lot of, every county varies, but generally speaking, we get results that are, 50% to 100% better than, than the taxpayer. We were talking about Denton County yesterday. Our average value reduction is about 8 to 10%. The property owner is about 4.5%. So, I don't know offhand in Dallas, but, and I don't know where you're at either, but, you know, it's, you know, we definitely, I think, get better results on average. That doesn't mean that a homeowner couldn't go in some cases, like I said, especially if you have a substantial, you know, foundation issue or something like that, and you get a nice appraiser and they give you a big cut, it's possible. But on average, you know, that's the thing. And then the third thing, or fourth, or whatever, I don't know, is just time. I mean, you know, we had a gentleman yesterday, and was on yesterday and spoke, and, you know, he went to Denton and he got a reduction. But he spent an hour and a half, you know, waiting around in the lobby and going to get, you know, a couple $100 reduction. And, you know, so I think that's the rationale.
Thank you so much. And I have another question. Actually, I know that a lot of our listeners and viewers are watching us. So this is also for the community. We want to encourage everyone that should we protest the property tax or not. So if you tell us what is the success rate in Texas if we protest, so I think it will be a good point for the viewers.
Yeah, well, it depends on the county, and it depends on a lot of factors. I would say, you know, obviously, we wouldn't be in business if we didn't get reductions. So I'm gonna get, you know, people taxable value reductions. I would have gone bankrupt, you know, a while back. So overall, you know, again, depending on the county, it could go, in Collin County, honestly, it's harder to get reductions because of the way they do things, and you kind of, you know, we don't get as big a reductions as we do in, say, Tarrant or Denton counties, but we get 90–95% of accounts reduced. You know, I may send you a bill for $50 instead of $200, but you know, you're going to get some savings more than likely. Dallas County, you know, we probably get 60–70% reduced in an average year. But part of that is they don't necessarily reappraise every property every year. So we file a protest on every property every year, whether it's been gone up, down, stayed the same. And because there's always an argument and there's always a chance, right? I get people, you know, and their value was lower than it was the year before, or it stayed the same, and they think it's low anyway, and it might be, but there's always an argument. And then we go in and we get reductions, and they're just like, you know, I thought there was no chance you were going to get anything. But, you know, I would say probably 70–80% overall statewide is what our success rate is on an annual basis.
Wow, that's a great news, I think, whoever is watching us, because if its success rate is 80%, I think people will be encouraged to protest the property tax.
Yeah, but just to add to that, can I get the mic? Just to add to that, whether you got a reduction as an outcome of your protest or not, this is simply building a history of protest itself is an asset for you as a homeowner, because it only shows that the process or the rate at which the taxes have gone up is not something you are happy with, and I will be able to kind of substantiate. But the people who are lazy not to protest will always be hit hardest by any authority, and the taxation authority is no different, and you can say better on that. So I'm saying whether you win or lose, or don't, you can't lose here. So whether you win or not win, you protest by yourself or through Ray Group or by any other group, you must protest. That's the kind of submission and the message that I would have for our viewers and for you at large.
While we are talking about it, we have viewers online, and there's a question. Shakil Haq wrote, if we protest, how does the county decide? I think he's asking for all the factors county take to decide.
Well, again, you know, there's the kind of the two methodologies. There's the market value, the equal and uniform. So we present that evidence. It could be decided informally through an agreement with the appraisal district, or through the appraisal review board panel, going through the formal appraisal review board panel. And then again, there's additional appeals beyond that, so.
So I have a question.
Yes.
First thing is that deadlines. Is there a deadline to sign up with your help?
Yeah, that's a good point. We're getting close to the deadline. For most people, it's going to be May 15th. I mean, for Dallas, and I believe Colin, and Denton as well, it's May 15th. It's been extended in Tarrant County to the 24th. But the general deadline is the 15th. So,
Colin, right?
I know what you're saying.
All right, so 15.
But as far as us, I mean, we have to file a protest on your behalf, right? And we're filing protests on the 15th. So we have to make sure that all gets out the door. So, I mean, generally the deadline for us would be noon on the 15th. So that we can make sure that we get everything out the door in time.
So is it just for them, for you, 15 or for?
The deadline to file a protest is the 15th. If you're going to hire us and have us file it for you, it would still be the 15th, but again, by noon, preferably. Because if you send it to me at 6 o'clock, it's gonna be a little hard to get it in the mail. But that kind of thing.
And what documents do I need to send to you if I need your help?
Well, I've got, right there, in QR code, you can go, just go to the online sign up. You got to click a couple of places, and then it takes about 2 to 3 minutes online. You can e-sign the documents right there on your phone, and it's just a one-page fee agreement. I've made it as simple as I can to explain the calculations and everything, and then a 2-page appointment of agent form. But really, it takes a couple minutes. You put in your information, you sign up, and then you're in our system. You'll get a confirmation email and a portal. And then if you wanted to go add in any estimates, photos, or any comments in the portal, then you can do that at any time. We'll go from there.
And is it just one-time sign up for next year's also, or if I have to sign up every year next year?
I mean, generally, we go until you tell us to stop, and we protest every year. And we'll reach out and make sure, you haven't sold the property or anything like that.
So another question I have is, so if you're filing on behalf of us, is there any charge for filing?
No.
Okay, so only time you're gonna charge is if we win, like if it's.
Right. If we generate tax savings for you, we'll send you the bill.
It's entirely continuous.
Okay, so even like following year, you're just gonna keep filing for us? So we just have to do the one-time paper?
Yes.
I see, okay, thank you.
No.
Hi.
If somebody was foresting last 3 years, or somebody bought the property like 3 or 5 years ago, they never forest. So they can do the back forest, or they have to do the current one.
You have a very short window to protest every year. So you got 30 days to protest, generally. So no, we can't go back unless the only scenario where you can go back to prior years, which you can go back 5 years, if there's a clerical error of some sort that impacted value. That's pretty rare. Generally, that's it's got to be an error, not not that you just disagree with the value, but that they made some kind of error in the record and put your neighbor's lot on yours and you didn't notice it, that kind of thing. And then you can go back and clarify that. But 99% of the time, no, there's not. It's a single year. And the protest, you have the opportunity to protest every year, and we just start moving forward.
Okay, another question, right? Residential or commercial, both of them, like if we bought a property today,
Yeah.
and the previous owner, based on our sales record, previous owner paying like $1 million, the property like that for last like 20 years. And today, if I bought the property for 2.5 million, so my tax is going to be based on the 2.5 million, my purchase value. So at this moment, you can force that one, or I have to just,
Well, I mean, we protest everything every year, right? You know, and commercial, residential, it doesn't matter. We protested all kinds of things. I did a lawsuit on a jet and got it reduced 99%. Tax bill was $523,000. The guy got paid $5,000 by the time it was all said and done. So, I mean, that's a rare scenario. Usually we'll get 99% reduction on my house, but all kinds of property, and in that scenario, you know, the prior year, what was assessed by the appraisal district really isn't super relevant. I mean, if it's the same owner and they raise your house from $1 million to $2.5 million, legally it's not relevant, but you know, it's certainly an argument to make when you're before the appraisal review board of reasonableness of increase, things like that. But when you change owners and you have a new purchase, the only argument that's really gonna have any bearing there is, like I mentioned, with the equal and uniform. Because the likelihood is that the other properties that they're comparing you against are in your neighborhood, maybe more relevant house, maybe a little less in the commercial property, but still could be. They probably didn't raise everybody 2.5 times, right? So if they went and it's called sales chasing, because the appraisal district is supposed to set values at 100% of market value. That's their job. But they're not supposed to chase individual sales. So just because you paid $2.5 million, that doesn't mean they're supposed to raise your value to $2.5 million. They're supposed to use that data to adjust their formulas and tables to get all similar properties up to what they consider a reasonable level. So, but often they'll go and raise your value to $2.5 million. They'll impute some things in your little system, and then they may raise the other guy to $1.5 million, right? You know, so you know, like I said, with that house that I just did is, you know, the most fresh example to me. You know, you paid 2.5, they valued it a little over 2.3, but then on the equal and uniform, it got it down to $1,680,000. So you know, it's not based off of last year's value for the previous owner, but there's still an argument.
This last question.
Yeah.
Please. If a new construction home in the middle of the neighborhood, where like all the existing homes there, if my next home value is 300,000, but the reason I just reconstructed that one is value coming for 900,000. So in that moment, who is like comparison I can use it?
Well, there's always, this is more art than science, you know, it's not, as is, you know, real estate, I think, it's, you know, there's not 100% objective value on any property, right? I mean, seldom, right? You know, if you're going to buy a piece of property or sell a piece of property, it's not like there's the number that's magic and, you know, that this house is worth this, and it's the same, and perhaps more so even in this appraisal district process. I mean, the reality is they're probably not very good comparables. That, you know, a $900,000 new construction is probably not a great comparable to a $300,000 older home. I mean, we're also going to be adjusting for age. Usually everybody adjusts for age and adjusts for different factors. So, you know, I guess the point is, or if it was in our benefit to argue, then I would argue that $300,000 home is a great comp. If it wasn't, then I'm going to argue that it's the worst comp in the world, and that's the way it works. And you know, you go account by account and you look at what you can do.
Okay, I have a few more questions, but I have to do now. So please, phone number I can call.
Yes, there is.
Yes, okay. Yeah, thank you.
So I have one more question. So which value are you going to protest, the appraised value or market value? And what is the impact of that? If you lower the value, what would be the impact for next year's sales? Can you explain that? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you always protest both. I mean, really what you're protesting essentially is the market value. What that appraised value is it's not a percentage or anything like that. I mean, it's kind of a percentage, but what that is if you have a homestead, the the law says the value can't rise by more than 10% in a year. So that appraised value I consider more your taxable value, and that has that cap. So you may be in a scenario where, let's say, I've seen, properties that were at $1 million last year, but maybe they were taxed at 700,000. They might still be at $1 million this year, but now they're taxed at 770,000 because that appraised value was able to rise up until it hits the market value, right? So, our scenario is it's not really my ideal client because I'm probably not going to get a 25% reduction on that house, but I'll take it if you got it. Eventually I'll make some money. But we'll go and we'll fight it regardless. And maybe we get it to, in that scenario, we get it down to 800,000. So it doesn't save you necessarily anything this year, and you won't bill you anything this year. But next year, you've got a couple of scenarios that might leave it at 800,000. And then, instead of, you go from 770 to 800 instead of, 844 or 847. So it would save you next year. I mean, we can't control whether they raise the value next year or not, but it also gives you, especially last year's value is kind of seen as, it's a marker, right? It doesn't have necessarily legal weight, but it's a marker that, especially in an up market, the appraisal district is gonna not want to go below last year's value, right? So if you were at $1 million last year and, and they raised it to 110, there may be good evidence to get it down to 900,000, but they're not very likely to want to go below $1 million. And I've had scenarios, I mean, usually they end in litigation and I win, but we don't want to go in litigation on a, $500,000 house generally, right? But we've had scenarios where, there's very strong evidence to support that, a value below last year's value, but that's often seen as the backstop. So you want to protest every year and keep that as low as possible, because maybe you don't get any tangible savings this year, but this is very likely to help your argument in the future.
Thank you. And one thing, so if the next year's tax bill is same like this year, so there is no change. Excuse me. And so then how much you will be charge your clients for the next?
Well, it's every year stands on its own. So I mean, we'll protest each year and what savings we generate for that year, if any, we bill you for it.
Just to add to your question, whether can there be a retrospective effect if someone forgets to protest? So he already answered that. No, you cannot. If you forget to protest, gone that year, except for your homestead exemption. So there are people who even doesn't know that the primary residence at which they are staying, especially most of the young homeowners from our community, these are first-time home buyers, and they're staying in their house, and they don't know that for that house there is about up to roughly about $2,000 the tax that they get exempt because that's their primary residence. Now, if that's something that you forgot or you didn't know, you can have a reduction or payback of that up to 2 years in the past. Yeah.
Thank you, but that's a buyer's realtor issue, right?
Sorry?
That's the issue with buyer's realtor, right?
No, that's owner. Yeah, the homeowners.
So all of you, our viewers, you are watching this live seminar from Best DFW TX stage. We have some questions in the comment box. I will read it and get the answer from you. Sheshan, he asked, can we call and protest, or protest has to be online?
Well, I mean, Yes, the protest has to be in writing. So the protest has to be filed in writing, and if you're going to retain us, I mean, we're gonna need some written instruments to, for that.
Okay, we will maybe have some more questions, but anyone here?
But let me do clarify one
Sure.
thing. If it's someone that doesn't have access to the internet or is not very good with the internet, I mean, they can call our office and we can mail them documents, paper documents, or maybe even fax, so someone can figure out that. I've got one somewhere, but we do that on occasion, so if that's what they mean, but you can't protest or anything by phone.
It has to be written.
Yes,
It has to be.
yes,
So it can be written and online,
yes.
not by person calling the office.
Yeah.
They would need to call our office and we would send them something, but yeah.
I think whoever asked the question, Sheshan, you got your answer. And there is someone,
I can share an experience.
sure.
I don't have any immediate question, but experience-wise, 3 different ways you can do it. Protest is online, which I tried myself first time. And just like you mentioned, immediate reduction, you get satisfied usually it's on the market value. And the second one is you can do informal, or you can go to the board. The informal one usually takes a long time. Time value money is just like once you add up all this time you're investing to get there, how long you have to wait. I have done it in the past, just get really good experience. I got really close to all these appraisers in the Denton County office. Most of them are very good and they cooperate with you, but it just takes time. And a lot of times nowadays you can call in to make an appointment and you just show up. You can immediately visit them and show pictures, the foundations, repairs, any kind of evidence you have. You can share with them and they will work with you. Again, the other thing you have to be very careful is paying attention to the appraisal value, taxable value, or which one they are focusing on. Most of the time they focus more on market value, which doesn't help much if it is your primary homestead residence. And the third one is board is something it's very difficult to deal with. And during COVID time, I had to deal with, and immediately they just don't want to deal with any reduction. They just like immediately no. It's a very difficult argument unless you have solid concrete evidence with a lot of invoices, bills, the window repairs and things like that. But that's kind of like summarizes my experience, what I have been through. But today you guys kind of touched on every single thing like assessed value, market value, taxable value, the reduction. I think I've been doing the same kind of education in my community too. A lot of other people who are into tax protest and everything. And a lot of people don't want to deal with this even simple click online protest is just because they need to find the PIN number, so many other things that goes in. But it's very helpful, like if your process and everything is just like you mentioned, like if there is any kind of evidence you can submit or upload, which will help. I was comparing you guys against some of these other companies in the market. And I was just trying to see which one is more beneficial for end clients, like you're gonna satisfy. So I will give it a shot to you guys and see how it does. And maybe next year I will share my experience.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I have another question.
Okay.
The question is, I want to encourage whoever is watching us, and what are the main reasons we should protest the property tax? I know you already discussed, but some solid reason that we should protest.
Well, I mean, if you like overspending on things, then go ahead. I mean, it's, I'm like, I've actually spent 2 years trying to find a lawnmower and I'm like, no, this is ridiculous. But, zero turns are expensive. But, I probably wasted hundreds of hours of time mowing with a push mower, but, because I just don't wanna. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's just a matter of saving money and keeping this is an expense that's super easy to control. I mean, you can't control it, it's still kind of, but you can keep it in check and make sure that you're not overpaying. It takes a couple minutes to sign up and then we'll take care of it from there. Until you tell us to stop, we'll go and make sure every year you're paying the least amount of property tax as possible. And, we've got scenarios, especially, it wasn't great for me, but, I had, because for a few years, the Tarrant Appraisal District just kept rolling my clients' property values. So I got them cut in 2019, pretty low. Like I got good reductions in 2019. 2020, 2021, the market's going crazy. And most of my clients, a lot of them, their values stayed the same. They left them the same. They were 50% under the market. Some of them were half what their neighbors were selling for. I mean, I don't consider that I've done a good job unless my clients are the lowest in the neighborhood. And, so anyway.
You see, just to add to what Ryan is saying, at least for the last 12 years, I ran businesses. Our family is also like financial terms. We need to, look at and run the families like businesses. What I mean by that is in business, any cost which is of recurring in nature, you take an extremely hard look and if you do not let that recurring expenses go up even by an inch. Why? Because the problem with recurring expenses going up, it has got a compounding effect on your total expenses. Yeah, so any expense which comes every year, every month, it goes up by 2%. Next month, it will go by another 2% on that 2% increase, and so on and so forth. So before even it has snowballed into something way bigger than what it used to be. So therefore, property tax is similar to that. A regular tax Dallas household, the tax increase would be in the vicinity of 1,200 tax increase only. Now, if you can reduce that 1,200, if you can keep that 1,200 raise down to 600, you have saved 600. I'm just giving you example, not putting any target to you though. So that's 600. Now, so 600 savings is coming on at a perpetuity. So the 600 you save this year, you save next year 660. Next year you save 660 plus 10%, and so on. So that's why it's extremely important that any cost of recurring nature, we take utmost care of controlling it so that it doesn't go up. If anything, it goes southward, it goes down. No question? Any other question? Last question?
Yeah.
Let's take a last question.
Yeah, I think we have another question.
Yeah.
Can you please talk about a little bit more of the homestead exemption?
Right.
Or like, how does that work, or like, how is it different from the tax reduction?
Right, well,
process?
so if your primary residence, you get one in the country, because that's another, I was telling somebody, if you've got a home here and you got a home in, somewhere else in the US, you can only claim a homestead exemption in one place, and sometimes they'll come find that out and you get into some problems. But if you can choose one place in Texas that you live in to claim homestead exemption. It gives you that 10% cap going forward, so that we talk about, which leads to that, often that difference between the appraised value and the market value. And then also, the legislature just raised it, this year, so the first $100,000 in taxable value for the school district is now exempt. And then there are other exemptions that are put in place by the counties and, by the other entities at their choice. But, so that's the main thing, is that first $100,000 in school district taxes are exempt with the homestead exemption, and then that 10% cap. And that, and one other thing that I do want to point out, just in case no one's asked, but, I spent 10 years on the Crowley School Board. I'm from South Florida. So I definitely understand, and there may be some people who think, well, if I'm going and fighting this and everybody's fighting it, it's going to reduce the amount of money that goes to the schools. But the reality is kind of the opposite with the way our school district funding works. Really what it does is the higher those values are, the less money the state contributes to the local school district. So they say, oh, your values are higher, and that often puts school districts in a bind. Like, they would rather their values be lower generally. So, we're kind of like Robin Hood, right? We're, taking money from the state to put it into the local school system. It's not, there are problems with Texas school district funding. There are a lot of problems with it, but you filing a protest isn't going to be taking money out of the schools or anything else. It's just a matter of shifting who pays.
So if you want, can we file both at the same time, or it's just either or?
Oh, yeah, the protest, you have a limited window every year, which is until, April 15th. The homestead, you can file at any time. And now, there is, I think, May 1st is like a deadline, but it doesn't, like you said, you can go back, they'll go back a few years. So if that's your primary residence, and it has to be on your driver's license, the address on your driver's license. They made that change a few years ago. But, if you have two homes that you maybe split time between, then, I would suggest the more valuable one is the one that you would put your homestead on. But again, it has to be the address on your driver's license.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I got two questions. So one is, if somebody already protested on a property, can they still use your service?
Yes, if there hasn't been a final order
Okay.
by the appraisal or a signed settlement, then yes.
Okay.
We take over a lot of hearings all the time.
Thank you. And next one is that the code that we have, when can the viewers or listeners can use it? During registration process or towards the final?
Yeah, when you go and do the registration online, like I said, I think it's in step 2. It asks if you have any promo codes, and you just type in Mizan, M-I-Z-A-N, and
Registration, please.
Okay.
yeah.
That's perfect, the registration.
All right, that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Kiaba,
So thank you so much. Rare I should not mistake right now, right? And
he is certainly not Monica.
that's the name actually we got, and we made the flag. So I had an impression that it's the same name. So whoever is watching us, thank you so much, Ray Ryan, for giving us a lot of pros and cons on the property tax protest. And I think in our community, Bangladeshi community, we are always reluctant to protest this kind of tax. Maybe we don't know much, or maybe we are thinking it will cost us more time and money we don't have. Maybe there are some other reasons. And we always think information is power. So today we try to give some insight of the property tax protest, and I hope the community and whoever is watching us from other areas it helped you to realize that there's nothing to lose. We can protest, it's free. Do it by yourself, do it through any company, but protest. Maybe you will win, maybe you will not, but it will not decrease your property value or you are not spending more. That we can conclude here today. And thank you so much, Mizanur Rashid, to brought this concern into our community and start talking. And whoever watched us here in person, thank you all. And I will ask Mizanur Rashid if you have any last word to say to our viewers.
Not really. No last word. My last word is thank you so much, Best, for giving this platform. And the last word I would actually reserve for Mr. Mahmoud Mehdi. If you could just say anything to conclude this.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We'll meet again online or in person. Thank you.